This is the
legs. Quarterback's legs.
Fakes left, now taken off. Gonna run for it, he got it! And there he goes! Inside the 10, the 5. Oh, the play of the year in the NFL! Quarterback legs it was.
I said no spy on this play. I can't believe it. The rare mistake by Kansas City. There's times.
Hey guys, welcome back. Eric Smith here, 5 Reasons Sports contributor, co-host of the Scouting Combine with Hussam Patel and Eric Wiedeke. You can find that one on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel and also the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast feed. I've also started doing a live show on Wednesday mornings on my channel, along with Anthony Testino, who's been doing some great defensive breakdowns on my channel. So if you've got some questions for Anthony and me, come check that out at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. As we get into the video here, right, the grades are going to come first, as always, and then we'll get into a film review of the red zone plays, well, the deep red zone plays inside the 10-yard line for the Dolphins this week. But first, we're going to get into the grading. So, as you can see on the screen here, this is offensive line grades for Week 11 versus the Commanders. In parentheses, as usual, we have the player's individual grade for the season so far. First thing we're going to look at is the overall grade for the offensive line. So, came in at a 5.47 this week. Not quite as good as last week's, but still a good grade. This is now 4 weeks in a row that we've had the offensive line over a 5.00, which is considered the average. And that kind of corresponds with, this stretch where the Dolphins seem to be playing some much better football. As usual, we are going to start from the lowest graded player and work our way up through the highest graded player. So our lowest graded player this week was right guard Cole Strange, coming in at a 1.50. So clearly not a good week. He did string together a couple of good weeks before this one, but, kind of fell, back to earth a little bit in terms of what I feel that he is overall. I had 53 plays that I had him graded on. I had 9 of those that were at least partially negative. So almost, 20% of plays he was at least grading partially negative on. It was a mix of, ones where he had a 0, so he was just cleanly beaten, and other ones that were partial negatives, so, get a 0.5 for those plays. Of the 9 plays that I had him graded at least partially negative, it was a good mix of run and pass, but 8 of those 9 came on concepts that were to his side, whether it was an outside zone or a crack toss or duo to his side. 8 of those were when they were trying to do something in his direction. So it seemed like he was decent on the backside of stuff, but, kind of not good enough when they are running the ball towards him. And then our next lowest graded player is going to be left guard Jonah Savaiinaya. And you can see that even though he is the second lowest grade player, he's above a 5.00, which is considered a average performance. And this is by far his best performance of the season. His first time getting above that 5.00 mark. Had him for a total of 5 plays that were marked at least partially negative, but only one of those was one where he was, cleanly beaten. And that was it was a run play. It was a long trap to the right side, so to his side. So it would have been a down block that he failed to execute. Big change up for what he's had in the past, where there was always a few plays throughout the game where he was just, really ugly. So huge step in the right direction for Jonah Savaiinaya. He's been trending in the right direction. And as we get into the bye week, I think we're going to look at that a little bit, seeing his progress from the beginning of the season to where he is now. Still needs to continue to grow and get better. But if we can find performances anywhere close to what we had this week, then, we can be confident that we are getting the player that we thought we were getting when we traded up for him in the 2025 draft. And then after Jonah, the next lowest graded player is going to be Aaron Brewer, coming in at a 6.19. You can see that's a little lower than his 7.05, which is his average for the season. Not an awful day for Brewer by any means. He did not have any plays where he was beaten cleanly based on my grading. Just had several ones where he had a partial negative. Most of those were in the run game. And looking at those, four of them that were in the run game, it looks like three of them were inside zone or duo plays. So, that's stuff where he's going to be asked to handle a one technique or a nose, which is not, the strength of his game. Part of the reason I think the Dolphins ideally want to get back to more of an outside zone team. But like I said, not a bad performance by any means by Aaron Brewer. But, once we have the line fully healthy, then I think that we'll, really see that emergence and see him shine even more than what he is now. Next up is going to be Patrick Paul, just a little bit below his season average, 6.28 season average of 6.86. And he did have one play that, he got a full negative on. That was on a center trap that was a play action pass going to his direction. Other than that, all of his partially negative plays were in the run game, and that full negative was in a play action pass play. So in pass protection, he continues to be a brick wall, absolute Pro Bowler in the pass game. And his run game stuff has been pretty good, but I feel like we've talked about that multiple times throughout this season, that there's still a little more meat on the bone for Patrick Paul. But, seeing him as a person, hearing him talk and seeing the way that he's grown since he was drafted, I have no doubt that he will continue to do that. But there is still, a little bit of a ceiling for Patrick Paul to get up to, but good performance overall again from him. And lastly, our highest graded player of the week is Larry Borom, coming in at a 9.02. So excellent grade from Larry Borom. But as we've talked about in the past, a lot of that has to do with the way that they are protecting this right side of the line with their play calling. They only called a half slide protection to the left side one time the entire game versus the Commanders. So, those are the typical scenarios where he would be left one-on-one with a defensive end in pass protection. And that's where he is going to struggle the most. Also feels like, they're not going away from outside zone to the right, haven't had as much success with it. But we're seeing a little more crack toss to the right, where instead of asking Larry Borom to, move to his right and block the edge player one-on-one, now we are cracking, with a tight end, fullback, wide receiver, that edge player, and letting Larry loop around to the outside and get in space a little bit. Not that he's great at that. He's not, Patrick Paul or Aaron Brewer in that sense, but, feels like they are finding that they're better off letting him get into space and try to attach to a secondary player than they are asking him to block an edge player one-on-one. So, very good grade from Larry Borom, but, just adding a little bit of context that based on what they're asking him to do, he should be grading pretty well. And I think that when we see Austin Jackson back in the lineup, then we'll see a little more emergence of that outside zone run to the right where, Jackson really shined when he was healthy. So there are the grades overall for this week. And as you can see, solid week overall with the exception of Cole Strange. Everybody was above a 5.00. And if we could get all of them, and if we can get Cole Strange to get close to a average grade, then we are going to see the best grade of the season for this group. So think the group overall is moving in the right direction. Just need to get a couple of guys healthy and see them reach their ceiling. As we move over into the film review portion, like I said before, we are going to be looking at all of the plays that the Dolphins ran inside the Commanders' 10-yard line from the game yesterday. All right, so first play here, this is going to be second quarter, 12:15 to go, 2nd and 2 from the Washington 10-yard line. And what we're going to get here is a inside zone or a duo concept with some play action there. And this is one that has gotten a lot of attention because, should have been there. And the question comes to whether this falls on Tua or whether it falls on Dulcich. Now, Tua being in this system, I tend to think this falls on Dulcich because if you look at where these defenders are here, that, once the the ball is thrown there, there's nobody to the outside, right? See how there is absolutely nothing out here, right? I really think that as Dulcich was releasing, he should have looked over his right shoulder, continued out there, versus looking over his left shoulder and trying to catch it inside there. So on this one, I felt that it was a great play call by Mike McDaniel. Had what should have been a clearly open throw and catch for a touchdown. But as we watch Dulcich again here, as he's releasing, you can kind of see as he's leaving the screen there that he's starting to look over his left shoulder and then turns around to his left. Whereas had he opened up to his right, probably catches that heading towards the sideline and has a chance at a touchdown. So next we are going to get 3rd and 2, and this is still from the Washington 10. And what we end up with here is outside zone blocking to the right, and we're trying to roll Tua out to the left. And obviously it ends up as a sack. This is not a offensive line sack. But when we get back to the top here and we look at this, we see this all the time in the NFL, and the Dolphins run this frequently, that the idea here is that you're trying to get everything moving to the right and that you don't even have to block this defender. You want him to pursue this way as the quarterback is rolling out, and you eventually essentially take him out of the play without touching him. My complaint with this play and the way that the Dolphins run it is that they're using Jalen Waddle in this orbit motion, and they're faking the ball to him. We have not run an outside zone to Jalen Waddle all year, and you have Tua opening this way to Waddle. So that's exactly what this defensive end is looking at. So when you see that, you see Tua opening up to Waddle, that's the only player that he can give it to, right? What point does he have to pursue down the line of scrimmage? Even if they give that to Waddle, he's going to be at full speed out here. This defensive end is never going to stay flat and get there. So the defensive end ends up sitting, and he's the one that makes the play against Waddle. In my opinion, if you're going to run something like this, Waddle doesn't even need to be here. Put Jalen Wright in here. Put Ollie Gordon in here. Put Malik Washington in here. Put somebody in here that we have given an outside zone so that this defensive end actually thinks that it might be a give. So didn't hate the play call, right? I like the idea of rolling Tua out of the pocket, especially as well as they were running the ball. But if we're going to go with this type of concept, then let's not fake it to a wide receiver that we have not given the ball in an outside zone to the entire year. Now we are going to move on to the next goal line series. So this was quarter 3, 8:25 to go. 1st and goal from the Washington 7. And what we're going to get here is a GT counter. Not an uncommon play in the NFL, but not common for the Dolphins. Sunday, I believe, was the first time the Dolphins ran this play all season. And the reason that it is called GT counter is because you are pulling your guard, you're kicking out the end, and then you're pulling around your tackle, right, guard and tackle, and he's looping up through. We're going to get Ingold coming across, but everybody else, we're going to get Julian Hill is climbing to this linebacker, and everybody else is blocking down, right? And then we're going to get some counter action from Ollie. But again, the key blocks here are going to be Cole Strange as your kick out, Larry Borum as your lead. We get Julian Hill on number 20. So Borum should be working to Bobby Wagner on this. There goes your motion with Ingold. And as they're coming across here, you get a little bluff from Hill just to kind of keep that edge player to the outside. Then he moves up to number 20. Everything is looking solid here. We got the down blocks forming that wall. Hill is working up to the linebacker. Cole Strange, pull left, hit left in a good position. All we got to do here is to get Borum a little tighter, and he's going to seal that, and we're running in for an unblocked touchdown. So pretty decent execution, but still a little bit of room to grow here. In the end, it's still a 4-yard run and creates a 2nd and 3 scenario. So I was wrong on that. This it was only a 3-yard gain, so this is 2nd and 4, 2nd and goal from the Washington 4. And what we're going to get here is a zone right. I would classify this as a outside zone right, even though it cuts back. If we watch the way that Achan's path is going, as he takes the ball, he is aiming for this, ghost tight end, right? And we'll see that path as he opens up, right? That path is out here. Now, we talk about the blocking for it as we get Ingold in motion here. We'll pause it. Now, because of where the assignments are going, you almost know this is going to be a cutback for Achan because we know that Ingold is working to the backside. So when we start counting up the numbers, it's going to send Borum out here, Strange to here. Brewer is going to work play side. So if this defender were to spike inside, right, it's basically a combo between Brewer and Strange, and they're working up to the linebacker here. Jonah is here. And I think we get a little confusion on how the backside is getting sorted out here because Paul is stepping down to the right. I think, to me, it feels like he expected Dulcich to come with him because he looks like he's trying to step to the inside and work up to a linebacker. So I think that Paul was expecting a combo up to the linebacker. Dulcich ends up staying to the outside here. Wagner is unblocked. And as Ingold is coming back across, whether he felt like he was supposed to get the edge here, right? If it's the way that I'm thinking, then we were here, up to Wagner, and then bringing Ingold back across. But instead, Dulcich tries to take that edge, doesn't do a good job, and Ingold has to clean it up anyways. So I think there's some confusion on the backside here. But overall, feel like it was still a pretty successful play, given what it was. Even though we're expecting the cutback, Achan should still be, reading his blocks. Borum clearly is not going to get outside leverage there, so we're already looking to bang this to the inside. Strange has inside leverage, right? So now we're starting to think cutback. Same with Jonah here. And you can see I'm talking with Pat Paul that he is way to the inside there. And you can see Ingold really never even looks up to Wagner. So I'm not sure whether he was supposed to go to Wagner and realize Dulcich is getting beat, or whether Dulcich was supposed to step down here to the inside when this defender slants or steps down and work to the inside. Like if that was Pat Paul's guy all the way, I feel like he'd have been a little slower to go and kind of drug him through there. But anyways, as Achan's taking this handoff, Pat Paul does a good job of flipping his hips around and creating a little bit of a crease there. So again, I didn't dislike this play at all. A little sloppy on the backside of it. But when you go from a 2nd and goal from a 4 to a 3rd and goal from the 2, right, still successful play in my opinion. And then 3rd and 2, 3rd and goal from the 2. We're getting Julian Hill in motion. Now we are getting counter solid. So on this one, as we get back to the top, we have no pulling offensive lineman, and that's why it is a counter solid. So we are getting everybody on the line washing down to the right. And then we're going to get Julian Hill coming in motion. And about here, the ball is snapped. And we're looking for a kick out of Julian Hill on Frankie Louvu. And then we're leading Alec Ingold through. And we're getting a little counter action from Ollie Gordon. And what we end up with is that Julian Hill does not get a great block here as he comes in motion. He's looking for the kick out. He starts out in good position, but I don't think that his angle was very good, right? See where that ball is snapped? He needs to kind of get downhill and square that up. He gets a little too vertical. So even though he's got his head on the right side, right, he's hitting more with his back versus squaring that up a little bit. This is it's not the easiest thing. The Dolphins really don't ask their other tight ends to do some of this stuff that Julian Hill does, but Julian's got to be better with this. Got to be able to square that up a little bit, because if he does, if all he does is stalemate Louvu as he's coming through there, right? When we're right here, if we get the block there, then we're getting Ingold coming through, getting the block there, right? And it's not a big lane that we're going to get, but Ollie Gordon has shown the ability when he gets that small lane to get through that he's capable of scoring on that. Instead, he ends up needing to bounce it and get tackled. So again, don't necessarily dislike the play call here, just need to clean up the execution, and part of that is on a player that has been out for the last couple of weeks and made a mistake. So now we get to 4th and goal from the 2, and this is going to be a traditional pass, so no issues at all with the pocket. This is a half slide right to protection to the right, and what we're going to end up with here is as Tua takes the ball, all right, he's looking to the left, and then he's coming back to Waddle, who's crossing over the middle. And this is a fantastic play by Bobby Wagner. You know, Wagner is sitting here in the middle of the field, and we are getting Jalen Waddle, who's over here in the slot, in a full sprint across here. We're going to see this ball thrown when Waddle is about right there. So, I mean, Bobby Wagner is a fantastic linebacker, but there is no way that a linebacker standing in the middle of the field should be able to make a play on Jalen Waddle running this way and getting, you know, a pretty well-placed ball here. So as we watch the play go again, you can see Wagner opening up, seeing Waddle. Look at all that space. You know, probably 99% of the linebackers in the league. Waddle runs through this and just slides down, makes that play. But Wagner, right, just a pinky on the ball, ends up making the play. So, again, not a play call that I dislike here. I think they had the right idea. I think that, you know, Bobby Wagner, one of the, you know, Hall of Fame linebacker, is able to make a fantastic play there that, you know, if we get this opportunity again, absolutely would go back to it, even against Bobby Wagner, because, you know, while he makes the play here, right, this is a linebacker that's, you know, basically 1 in a million, making a play that's 1 in a million. So, you know, this is the type of play that, you know, you're trusting your guys to win. And in this case, it doesn't happen, but you can't abandon it because of that. Fantastic play by Bobby Wagner here. Now we are in the 4th quarter, 13:28 to go. So this is 1st and goal from the Washington 8. Again, nothing wrong with the pocket here. And in this case, we're just trying to get, this is almost a one read type play in the sense that, and it's a timing throw, right? You're trying to move the linebackers out of the way and you get that. But what you're trying to get here from the offense, right? We'll pause it here. So again, we're getting Tua looking to the right here. I don't think there was ever really a read to the right here. I think it's just to keep these guys out of the middle of the field. You're going to have Waddle pressing up and going to the outside, and you're basically trying to create a rub route to get Dulcich over the middle here. 39 actually plays this pretty well. And when we see this, I don't know whether, you know, maybe Waddle could have done a little more in terms of pressing this vertical before breaking to the outside, or maybe Dulcich's timing was a little bit off. But, you know, this is basically a one read throw where you're looking to be able to hit your big tight end coming across the middle. And, you know, maybe this is Darren Waller. Then we do a little better with a playing through the contact, making a contested catch. Maybe Tua's got to throw the ball a little better to give Dulcich more of a chance here. But overall, like the play call, just feel like, you know, a little bit off in terms of the timing or the, you know, the execution, whether it was Waddle, Dulcich, Tua. You know, this is something I would like to see them continue to try to utilize. Just didn't work out here on 1st down. So now we get 2nd and goal from the 8, and we get a little bit of a unique formation there, and turns into a screen that we've seen before. When we get back to the top, we'll look at that formation again. So we see this on defense sometimes where, you know, it's called birds on the fence or something like that, where we have Devon Achane, Ollie Gordon, Malik Washington all at the same level as Tua. So a little unique in that sense. We're going to get a fake screen to Washington on the left here. We're going to see him jump up, which is something the Dolphins did a couple of times. They had Tua jump up on another play. Neither of them, you know, none of them seemed really all that effective, but didn't really affect this play in general. what we're going to get, that screen that we've seen before, is Achane is going to start to the right here out of the screen, and then he's kind of come back towards the middle. We're going to get Borum blocking the edge player, and then we're going to get Strange and Brewer leaking out on the screen pass. So again, don't worry about what's over here. Look on the right. We get Brewer leaking out there. You're doing a good job getting on number 6. Now, if Cole Strange here blocks Wagner or number 20, doesn't matter which one. Either way, we're creating a one-on-one matchup for Devon Achane, but he kind of gets stuck in no man's land, and not only gives Frankie Louvu a chance to get back in there, right? Now he's got to contest with Bobby Wagner as well. So on this one, again, like the play call, execution just a little bit off. If Strange either attacks Wagner right now or attacks number 20 right now, I feel like Achane's able to finish this one in the end zone. And that is going to bring us to 12:38 in the fourth quarter, 3rd and goal from the Commanders 1. And we are going to get Ollie Gordon scoring on duo. So as we look at this here, as we've talked about before with duo, essentially we are getting the offensive line. Everybody's moving to their left, and Gordon is going to get the ball going to the right. So we get Pat Paul out here. We get Jonah here. And I think that what we're looking to get is Aaron Brewer on 99, Cole Strange stepping that way as a combo block, working up to numbers at 58. And then we're going to get Borum and Brunskill working towards number 96 and cutting off the backside because we have, I forget this, Ingold or Hill. Somebody's leading inside for Wagner here. But obviously able to score here. Brewer not doing a great job here, right? Credit to Cole Strange for being able to get in there and strain through it because Brewer overshoots it a bit. Again, ideally we get movement here, and we're working up to 58. Looks like it's Julian Hill is the one, like I said, he's leading up through here to Wagner. Ingold's getting 55. And ideally, I think that what you get is that Larry Borum and Dan Brunskill are creating movement here up through 20. Can see that again, Brunskill, like Brewer, kind of overshoots that a little bit, but Borum does a solid job of flipping his hips and regaining it. So Ollie finds that lane between Borum and Julian Hill and is able to finish in the end zone. So an example of where everything doesn't have to be perfect, right? But if you have that running back that can find that small lane and finish with forward momentum, still going to have good things happen. And then we move on to the last goal line series. So this is going to be 1st and goal from the Washington 6. And we're going to get an inside zone to the left. And this is going to be Devon Achane. And you might have saw it there that as good as Aaron Brewer has been playing this year, you know, he does still have his faults, and being able to handle these one techniques in inside zone and duo continues to be, you know, one of those issues. So we're getting Pat Paul out there. Jonah is here. Brewer is there, trying to get Ingold in split flow motion, but we're going to see a little bit too much penetration on the front side A gap there for Achane to get through. Get the motion, there's the snap, and you can see that Brewer getting blown up early in the play. You know, maybe you could have said that Achane should have tried to cut that back, but overall need a little better from Brewer, need to be able to create at least a little bit of movement, end up with a 1-yard gain on the play. But for all the great things that Brewer does, this is one of those that every once in a while you're going to see plays like this pop up where he's not able to handle a, you know, play side one technique is, you know, in a perfect world. So then we come back 2nd and 5 here. And now, you know, typically I would not like crack toss near the goal line, but the Dolphins have run it well enough throughout the season. I didn't hate the call, right? You want to try to challenge the defense the entire width of the field here. So I like this as an option to get it outside. But when we talk about the execution of the play, this was almost disastrous in a few ways, and we get Devon Achane, showing just how special he is. But a couple things going wrong on the play. One, if you watch Tua here, right, you are going to get a bobbled snap from the beginning, and then we're asking Malik Washington to block here as we're looping around, and we're going to see that those two things almost lead to disaster on this play. So looking at the snap first, you can see that the snap is a little bit off, and that Tua then bobbles it, right, kind of double clutches it there, gets it out there. Achane has to stop. So not good there when you're trying to get to the outside. And then the other part of it, watching Malik Washington, his feet never get moving, and he does not get the crack on Frankie Louvu, right? If we can get head in front there, we can still get Achane to the outside. And if we just get that one block, this is, a walk-in touchdown. But we don't get it, so Louvu ends up affecting the play. And then, like I said, we get Achane. I mean, just look at that. Like, you're telling me that from this position here that Devon Achane is going to almost score on this play? Like, that is ridiculous. So great play by him here, but it kind of leads to an issue that I had on the next play. And that's going to bring us to 3rd and goal from the 1. And this was probably one of the plays that I had the biggest issue with in the game. And not even necessarily the play call, but you gave the ball to Achane on 1st and goal from the 6. He got stuffed. Not necessarily his fault there. You gave him the ball on 2nd and 5, had a heroic effort. And I get the idea that you want to let him pay it off. I think he ran the ball quite a few times before this. But we are at 3rd and goal from the 1 yard line. Like, this should not be about trying to get Devon Achane a touchdown. Let's put the big back in there. Ollie Gordon has been great in short yardage. And if you know you're going to go for it on 4th down, which we're going to get to, why not give the big guy 2 shots from the 1 yard line? So what we end up getting here is an outside zone run to the right. And I feel like Achane misread this a little bit, and as we get back to the top, we'll look at it again, and I will explain what I'm talking about here. So as we get motion, and we're going to pause it right there. So now we're going to get Julian Hill working out there, Larry Borum's out here, Cole Strange, and then we're going to get the combo between Jonah and Brewer up to Bobby Wagner, and Pat Paul is blocking there. And, it's hard to fault Achane. I know he's going to see a little bit of a lane there. But when we look at this, as we clear the screen, and as we're reading this outside zone, we're starting from the outside. And I can see right away, right, we're seeing the space there. You want to score there. And if it's Ollie Gordon, I think Ollie Gordon scores on this. He just is able to run through that lane and get there. So I understand why you see the space and you run to it. But if we are being disciplined and we are using our outside zone reads, we don't end up in that position because you are first reading the blocks out here. Clearly, these defenders have outside leverage, so we're working to the inside. Right now, right, as your eyes are coming back to the inside, should see that Cole Strange does not have outside leverage, and we should be working to get vertical here. And if you just get vertical, look at the lane that's opening up there, right? And I know that it feels like this is hindsight is 2020, but this is how the reads on outside zone should work, right? You start from the outside working in. Inside leverage, inside leverage, inside leverage, and now we get vertical, especially on the 1 yard line, right? Let's stop going to 45-degree angle and let's get vertical. Now, again, this is Devon Achane, right? Special player. Get why he tried to run to the space. But if we just put Ollie Gordon in here, then either Ollie Gordon is able to run through this and finish in the end zone, or Ollie Gordon is a younger player, maybe a little more disciplined with his eyes than what Achane is, since Achane can go off script, right? Then maybe we read this block better and we get vertical through there and we score on this play. So just overall, that was, my biggest issue with not necessarily the play call, but the personnel that we had on this play. And then we get to 4th and goal from the 1. Now we bring Ollie Gordon in and we try to run duo with Ollie. Ends up getting stuffed. And I guess, I do kind of have an issue with the play call on third down, that if you knew you were going for it on fourth down, even if you had Achane in, I feel like that would have been a good opportunity for play action, because 4th and 1 from the goal, you bring Ollie in. You know that this is going to be a run play. I think the defense knew it. And when the defense knows the run is coming in a short yardage play like this, then it makes it tough to block. And I don't think that I gave anybody a full positive grade across the board on this one. The biggest issue being Dan Brunskill, who gets beaten completely across his face by Frankie Louvu, allowing that penetration. Right? If you get that block here, then maybe you can sort it out a little bit, and Ali doesn't have to stop quite as much. But in the end, not a good enough job by the offensive line on 4th and 1, with nobody being able to create that movement. And the biggest culprit being Dan Brunskill is that 6th offensive lineman. He's done a great job with it this year, so I'm not going to blame him too much here. Just feel like the setup for this just didn't really do the offense any favors. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this week. So as you can tell there, I didn't have too many issues with the play calling in the goal line scenarios. I think the play calling was good overall, and there are opportunities to be had. This team needs to continue to clean up those little things. In this game, I think the Dolphins had less drives than they do in most games, which kind of contributed to that, the low output of offensive production. But also, right, there were opportunities on every single one of those goal line drives for the Dolphins to end with 7, where they only ended up doing that with 1, which was the Ollie Gordon touchdown. So still room to continue to see this team grow. Obviously, you don't play a 3-7 Commanders team and win in an overtime field goal and feel like there's not room to improve. But, just kind of showing that the room to improve is not stuff that's hard to get to. It's not just physically getting beaten. There is still room for this team to, fix the little things and start capitalizing on some of these goal line situations and finishing better than what they did yesterday. As always, appreciate you guys watching. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you think, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you. Chase, and back over to Achane again. Believe he's got a first down.
Make up for a lot of mistakes.
1st and 10 after an 11-yard pass play to Achane.